Hi guys, welcome to my favorite day of the week when I get to actually talk to you guys directly. So, you know, one of my favorite things to talk about is what's happening with the ZIG, Zimbabwe gold. Because of course, well, here's the headline that caught my attention this morning. Zimbabwe ZIG risks extinction because of poor policy. Well, that policy goes all the way back to 2006 when they decided to hyperinflate their currency the first time. This is the sixth iteration. Do you know why it's going extinct? Because, of course, you're saying, but it's backed by gold. It's backed by gold. It's not. It is pegged to the price of gold. I bring this up again because there is a huge difference between backing and pegging. What's that difference? When something is actually backed by an asset, you need to be able to have the ability to convert into that asset. You couldn't do that with Zimbabwe gold. In fact, the bill itself, here I've got my $10 trillion Zimbabwe note. This isn't a ZIG. I couldn't get a ZIG because they never printed it in physical form. Everything was digital, which also means that you couldn't convert into the underlying gold. And if you could have converted, then guess what? When they did that overnight revaluation in October, they wouldn't have been able to do that because the public would have had a say in it. And the way the public would have had a say in it is they would have converted their ZIG into the gold in there and pulled the gold out of the system. So it's not going into extinction because of poor policy, unless you want to call the hyperinflation since 2006 and the 6 iterations of a new Zimbabwe currency since then as poor policy. The reason why it's not being adopted is because public confidence, 100% of public confidence has been lost. And once that confidence is gone, it's virtually impossible to get that back. And that loss of confidence is exactly what we're witnessing today in the piece that I did last week on consumer confidence. This week, you absolutely want to make sure and watch the piece that I just did on consumer sentiment, because it broke a key technical level. And you need to understand this, because once the American confidence is lost, you ain't getting it back. It's just that simple. That's what Zimbabwe is dealing with. Zimbabwe rules out intervention as ZIG hits record low against dollar. You know what that doesn't matter about? Because you're looking at one fiat currency against another fiat currency. Who cares? They're both on a race to the bottom because governments like to spend money that they don't have. It doesn't matter. They make it up. And I thought this article was like super interesting because Zimbabwe's gold-backed currency, that's a lie. It is not backed. It is pegged. And you're going to hear more and more, and you probably already are, about asset-backed securities. If you can't convert it, it doesn't mean anything. And we all know if you don't hold it, you don't own it. It's that simple. But Zimbabwe's gold-backed currency weakened to a record low against the dollar as the nation's monetary authorities ruled out the need for intervention to support it. Well, what is that intervention? That's going into, it's this. It's printing more of this garbage to go into the market, to buy up the ZIG, to create that artificial demand. What other countries can you think of that is working on creating artificial demand for their currency? I don't know. How about the US dollar? Because that's what they did back in the 70s by creating the petrodollar. They created all of that artificial demand for dollars, which kept this game going. And what are they trying to do right now? Through stable coins, please. They are trying to create more artificial demand for the dollar because the general demand for the dollar from other countries is going away. How about you? Are you still demanding dollars? You really think that they have value? In 1971, I always love it when they refer back to when we were transitioning. Volcker, he was the head of the Federal Reserve back then, helped end the post-war global financial order that was anchored by the price of gold. How awful! Gold requires fiscal responsibility. Please tell me why any politician should have fiscal responsibility. How about every politician should have that? But without gold anchoring the currency and requiring that, well, this is where we are today, right? This is where Zimbabwe is, but this is where the whole world is. A disruptive decade later, at the helm of the Federal Reserve, he established a new order based on, oh my God, competent economic management. Are you flipping kidding me? Have you seen anything that's competent? And I'm not just talking about today. I'm talking about since 1971. And remember, I was a stockbroker in the 80s where all the talk was about the globalization and how great that was going to be. There was nothing competent about any of the economic management that's gone on. Central banks have used the interest rates to regulate the rate and speed of inflation, not to eliminate it, not to protect you or me or the purchasing power of this stuff. It's to make it decline in purchasing power slowly enough that you do not make any changes in your spending patterns or ask for more money or anything like that. There never has been any competent economic management anywhere that I've ever seen in the world, except maybe actually, when I stop and think about it, it would be Iceland during the financial crisis in 2008, because they were the only country that actually held their bankers accountable and actually went in and tried to help the public. So maybe there, but other than that, I've never seen it. The ZIG is Zimbabwe's sixth attempt at having a functioning local currency in the last 15 years. The sixth attempt. So that is not quite, 15 years, 6 currencies. You can do the math on that. It's backed by 2.5 tons of gold that they are confiscating from the miners and forcing the miners to sell a percentage of whatever it is that they mine in the local currency that's devaluing rapidly. I mean, all of this is just such garbage. And 100 million in foreign currency reserves, mostly dollars, that are held at the bank. This whole article is frankly propaganda. This whole article is about you not understanding what's really happening. And for me, it's critically important that you actually understand what's really happening, because unless it's the only way for you to know the truth, is the only way for you to make educated choices that actually put your best interest first. So I wanted to update you on the ZIG, because this is not a surprise. And anybody that's been watching me for a while, and I've certainly done a lot of, since 2006, frankly, I've done a lot of work paying attention to Zimbabwe. It matters to the U.S., it matters in Europe, it matters everywhere in the world, because this is what they're going to attempt. This is what they are going to attempt. That's central banks and governments. They're going to lie to you and lie to you and lie to you until it is convertible into the underlying sound money. What is sound money? That is money that is above all governments, all central bankers, and cannot be inflated away. That's what sound money is. And that's what both gold and silver have performed for all these thousands and thousands of years. But until we have sound money back in the financial system, don't expect any different than what we've gotten. In fact, in my very strong opinion, and well educated because of all the studies I've done on currency life cycles, it will be worse. Because where did the WEF, World Economic Forum, where did they tell you they want to take us? You will own nothing. And they want you to think you're going to be happy. I mean, how much more convenient if they can own everything and all you have to do is rent? Yeah. Guess what happens when we go into that system? That's the battle. That's why it's so critically important for us to come together in global community and create a quiet and peaceful revolution just by converting this garbage into sound money. So now I'm going to jump to questions. I'm going to put that there, and I'm going to jump to questions. And Gina Young asks, are gold backs subject to confiscation? And I happen to have a gold back right here. You can see that they're really gorgeous. But because of the premium in there, it's like 1,000% or something like that, they would be classified as a collectible and therefore not likely to be confiscated. There is a huge premium, but I see where these fit in the very beginning part for your initial liquidity, like you would have dollars to begin with, right? You need a certain level of dollars just because of the easy recognition. Once that is inflated away, then you go to your barterable, right? Fractional silver, fractional gold, that makes sure that you can buy food, pay your property taxes, all that basic stuff. That's where I can see gold backs fitting in. So you cannot hold them inside of an IRA. So that means that they are in a different classification, which is the classification would probably be collectible. These are for sure in that classification. The pre-33 coins, those are for sure in that classification. And the gold back, since you can't hold them inside the IRA, is most likely in that classification. So I do not think they would be subject to confiscation at this point. If, however, at any time you see that you can hold them in an IRA, then we'll have another conversation. So, and Brandon Robinson, so he's one of our strategy specialists at Zang Enterprises, and he asks a question. Good afternoon, Lynette. In your strategy, you have an ounce of silver at $2,087 post-reset. That's not exactly accurate. I'll come back to that. Let's read the question. I haven't seen this question before, so we'll read it, and then we'll come back. What could one reasonably see the price of silver during hyperinflation in the United States be priced at? So basically, in other words, how much can we expect to see in terms of silver during hyperinflation? I did the math on the gold to silver ratio, which is something everybody asks about all the time, and this morning, and it was 100 to 1. This gap is only getting wider as gold climbs. So let's just kind of break this down. Let's see. Okay, number one, it is not $2,087 post-reset or after the reset. That's how much the fundamental value, which is the true value, is of 1 ounce of silver, and that's based on the true fundamental value of gold being somewhere north of 41,000 at this point. And remember, this 20th of an ounce of gold, can you see how teeny tiny it is? 20th of an ounce of gold to 1 ounce of silver. So you take, once you find the fundamental value, and maybe I'll go through that. I'll just go through that, right? How do you know how much an ounce of gold? And I mean, $2,087 on an ounce of silver. What do you mean? It's trading at somewhere around $32. How can you say it's worth over $2,000? It's really simple. We all know about all the manipulation that there is in the market. And we know that a rising gold price, because gold is the primary currency metal, indicates a failing fiat currency, and it also indicates an oncoming crisis. But this is money, right? This is sound money. This is government fiat money that is created from debt. Full faith and credit of the government. As long as you trust them, you'll keep loaning money to them. So it's created from debt. They're both money. They're just the flip side of it. And this could be a euro. It could be a yuan. It doesn't matter. They're all created from debt, right? So the way that you know how much an ounce of gold truly is that you take your fiat money debt, and we use global debt as a proxy because that's how money's created. And we divide it by all the gold that exists in the whole world. In the ground, above the ground. Doesn't matter because there is a finite amount of gold. There's an infinite amount of debt that can be grown, but there is a finite amount of gold. So at the moment that I did that calculation, the true value of 1 ounce of gold was over $41,000. That's on a 1-to-1 ratio. I can't tell you when they do that overnight revaluation. I cannot tell you what ratio they're going to use. Nobody's going to know that until they actually do it. But the more, and then you take that number and you divide it by 20. And that's how I come up with over that $2,000 because that was the original ratio back in 1913. Having said that, when you think about the ratio, to me, what I automatically hear when somebody asks me that question is that you're thinking about gold and silver as a trade. And there might be a time when that would be applicable-ish. However, this is not the time because we are going through a major transition. This is a time to get your sound money strategy in place and executed, and then there will be plenty of time for everything after that. Now, let's see. So now you know how I come up with 2,087. The more of this debt and money that they create, frankly, the higher that number goes. I was just listening to quickly to a video that I just even did not that long ago where I said, I know that 3,000 an ounce on gold might sound outrageous to you. And look at where we are, right? It isn't gold going up in value. It's not silver going up or down in value. It's what they're doing to the value of this garbage, right? It's not the house going up in value. It's the decline in value of the currencies. And once you are clear on that, it kind of opens up a whole nother world. And what I try and do is to get you to look at something just a teeny weeny bit differently. Because from my personal experience, every time I do that, I see things I never saw before. It's just that little bit of a difference of an angle. So understand the next part of the question, what could one reasonably see the price of silver during hyperinflation in the United States be priced at? All right, well, let's talk about gold and silver. You know, it depends on how much of this money printing they do. It's really the only thing that they have, and it's like pushing on a string. So to see, you know, gold, spot gold at, I don't even know, $1 trillion, $10 trillion Zimbabwe note, right? Those are just numbers. Do not be blinded by numbers. That is called nominal confusion, which is a goal, and it is accomplished by inflation and by hyperinflation too, if you will. And so what nominal confusion is, well, I mean, here we go. I've got this $20 bill. Okay, this is actually a pretty new one, 2017. But if I have a $20 bill today, right? Nominally, they're identical. They're both $20 bills, right? But what this $20 bill would buy me in 2017 and what this $20 bill would buy me today, vastly, vastly, vastly different. So frankly, it doesn't matter in terms of dollars or euros or yen or any of it. It doesn't matter what that number is. What gold is and what silver is a sound money bridge. Because when one currency goes away, as we've seen in Zimbabwe. Another one pops up in its place. But what gold and silver do, and particularly gold is the primary currency metal, is that it creates a solid bridge from you to move from one financial system into the next financial system with your purchasing power with silver at a minimum remaining intact, and with gold expanding it. I think it was the one that I just did on Social Security where I just updated those tables on maintaining your purchasing power or expanding your purchasing power. Silver for me is about barterability. We could see that at $1 million. But what does that mean about the $1 million? It's just like this $10 trillion Zimbabwe note. I can't buy anything with this, but I can buy my eggs with this. So the numbers don't really matter. They don't matter to me. They only matter to me because they matter to you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't even care. I wouldn't care what the spot market says. I wouldn't care what any of that says. I wouldn't even, the fundamental value is important for you to be able to identify for any asset, because frankly, that's the only way for you to know if something's undervalued, fairly valued, or overvalued. Therefore, do I want to buy it? Do I want to hold it? Do I want to liquidate it? So, the 100-to-1 ratio, my bet is that once, especially, keep in mind too, technically, gold has broken out of its most current cup. And you remember that where I showed you over a little bit of time here, where it hit 4 tops, which was a very powerful position, and then it broke above it. So it's going, and with what's going on, so it's going up. And I don't know where that top is going to be in the moment yet, okay? Silver, however, still needs to conclude that cup. Once it does, and that top number is somewhere around $50, once it breaks above that, then you're going to see the price of silver shoot up as well. And, with the price action in both gold and silver, and particularly gold, I remember 2002 with spot at like $248 an ounce. If we saw a move in $1, mostly we're seeing a quarter, 50 cents, something like that. Now, to see a move of $100, $60, something like that has become really normal, right? But you stop and think about it, it's all relative, and it's always based upon where we are in this trend cycle, and so is the answer to that question. I can see the gap becoming more narrow, but don't think about this as a trade. This is your life insurance. This is your wealth insurance. This is your standard of living insurance. That's the way you need to think about this, because there are 2 things that you can do with the physical metals. You can sustain a reasonable standard of living, and then you can take advantage of opportunities. So you can protect the wealth that you've managed to accumulate, and you can be in a position where you can accumulate more when everybody panics and we see a flip-flop of valuations, right? Right now, gold is undervalued and everything else is severely overvalued. That's going to flip-flop. So you're going to be able to take advantage of that opportunity. It's what our strategy is all about. It's how do we move through this transition and come out, I dare say, better than when we entered it. This is a huge opportunity. It's also a huge opportunity to get sound money back in the system again. So we'll talk more about that at another time, because I kind of went off on a tangent here. Sorry. And Brandon, if I didn't answer your question properly, let me know, and I'll ask me again, and I'll try and explain a little differently. And Wolf asks, hi, Lynette, on BH's video, who's BH? He stated that if the government confiscates gold, what will be done is to nationalize gold mining operations. This will be the fastest way and will bring more gold. Thoughts? Well, 100%. I mean, this is what we're seeing on a global basis. But what is that nationalization but a form of confiscation? So I could easily see that happening. I could definitely see that happening. And it's definitely something to consider. Yeah, I mean, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. And this is my bullion coin, my 1 ounce American Gold Eagle, so that I could show it to you. But this is my personal preference because this is different. This is classified as a collectible, and I'm not paying fundamental value for it. I'm way below the fundamental value. And Jeff Hadley says, do you think a 5-acre community, heirloom organic vegetable garden, and vegetable roadside stand for our community would be a profitable investment in dollar collapse scenario? 100% I do. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Because you can live, I mean, think about it. You can live without gold and silver, but you can't live without food and water. So while the gold and silver is your wealth foundation and you need to have it, you know, food becomes the single biggest issue for people during these transitions. It's why I became a farmer, an urban farmer. And then, of course, I have my, you know, bug out property, which we're developing, and you'll see more of that as we kind of move through it. But yes, I do. That would be lovely. Think about all of the people that you would be helping. And it's not just that, it's strength in numbers. Because all those people that are buying from your stand, they can come and help you work the farm too, can't they? And if they didn't, but somebody else did, who are you going to give the food to, right? Community, critical. Miramar asks, Lynette, when you say we're going to have to use the currency that is brought in, wouldn't it be best to boycott as much as possible, like Zimbabweans, until we are sure we are being represented properly? Absolutely, 100%. Yes, thank you so much for bringing that up. And if you have security in food, water, energy, security itself, your barterability, which is this and anything physical, and any talents you have, your wealth preservation that you've secured, what you've already been able to accumulate, and then some, your community and shelter, you have that strength around you, then you can hold out, can't you? Then you can say no, can't you? And it's easier to do that when you have a full belly. It's easier to do that when you're surrounded by like-minded people that are banding together. So yes, exactly. The battle that we're also fighting, though, is to get sound money in that system. Because if the governments or those that are in power have their druthers, that's not going to happen. They don't want you to take back your power. But this is our opportunity for the public to take back our power that we so easily gave up back in 1933. Don't give that up. Let's take it back. So yes, because as you see in Zimbabwe, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. Oh, it's backed by gold? Garbage. Because if it was truly backed by gold, they couldn't have done the 44% overnight revaluation in October. Wouldn't have happened. But if they just say, well, it's backed, you going to believe them? Zimbabweans don't. They've had lots of experience with it. So yeah, 100%. We have got to be able to hold out. That's why community is so important, both local and global. We have to be able to hold out until we get what we want, which is a currency that is truly backed. And that means if you don't like what they're doing, you can pull the gold out of the system, and that creates more restrictions and fiscal responsibility. Excuse me. I'm getting all excited. I love you guys. I really do. I really can't even tell you how much I appreciate these Tuesdays. They really are my favorite day. Okay. And Pandemonium asks, hi, Lynette. Does it make sense for non-U.S. citizens to buy pre-33 gold coins? Yes, because it is a global market, and we're working on it. It's taking longer than what I thought it was going to be. But yes, because I don't think there's any government out there that is immune or whose citizens are actually immune from confiscation. And we know that desperate governments do desperate things. And they can call it whatever they want, but the bottom line is still the same. So you don't want to be in monetary gold. I mean, well, you do whatever you want. I don't want to be in monetary gold. I want to be in the kind of gold, because I've had so many people say, well, I just won't give it to them. They're not going to go door to door because there's not enough gold out there to make it worthwhile. They'll just make it impossible to use in the normal marketplace. But I'm executing a strategy, and hopefully you too are executing a strategy. So we need the kind of gold that is legal no matter where we are in the world so that we can execute our strategy. I learned that from my Uncle Al, and I frankly don't care what anybody says with the hopium. Oh, they'd never do that again. I don't know. Are you seeing central banks and governments around the world doing things that you never thought that they would do? Because I am, right? So no, I think it makes a whole lot of sense for it. Now, if you have collectible gold that's from your country, do that one first. But it makes all the sense in the world to be in the category that is the least likely to be confiscated, because then you can hold it and you can use it to execute the strategy. And Mario123 asked, it's nuts. Oh, it's not nuts. It's not nuts, Mario. I'm telling you, it's not. Gold is at $32.50. I remember picking them up at under $2,000. What in the world is going on? Are we in the beginning stages of hyper devaluation? Okay, so what's going on is the global loss of confidence in the dollar. The dollar and the dollar debts, the treasuries, were the anchor and the foundation of the global financial system. But it should be pretty obvious to everybody right now that that confidence and trust in the stability is, the words that were going to come out of my mouth is, it's gone. I think it is gone. And so if the dollar is not a flight to safety, if treasury bonds are not a flight to safety, what is this flight to safety? Do you really think that Japan's currency is any better than the US dollar? Do you think the euro is, or the yuan, or any of this debt-based money? It's not. There's only one flight to safety, and that's this. And the fact that you see spot at $32.50 is because they're losing control of manipulating it downward. It should be over 41 grand based upon supply and demand, but that's not where you're seeing it. And that's why, even going back to the collectibles with the spread that's in there, you eat that up, right? The strategy, the sound money strategy that we're executing, is designed not just in layers so that you can deal with wherever we are in the trend cycle, but it's also designed in a whole loop so that at the end of this, even as you have to spend your cash or your barterable position, you are made whole. Even if you have to pay those taxes, or there are fees, or there are penalties, or any of that, at the end of the day, you are made whole because it's designed in a complete circle to make you whole. And it's not rocket science in how it does that. It is because we are quite clear on what the true value of an ounce of gold is at this moment in terms of this stuff. And we are quite clear on how severely undervalued this is. So that's all. You're just buying low. By the time you recoup all of that, it's because it's gone up in terms of this currency. It's not rocket science. It's actually really simple. And that's the problem that I have with cryptocurrencies, because in order to understand them, I have to be a specific kind of engineer, which I'm not, because it's very complicated. I can't. This is simple. It's used in every single sector of the global economy. That means it's got the broadest base of functionality and the broadest base of demand. And while it takes energy to pull this out of the ground, that energy is then stored and used in all those different places. Ta-da! I mean, it truly is that simple. It truly is. And politicians never lie. 41,000? Come on, mention the potential downside. There's always a downside. Well, I suppose that this time could be different, and magically you could see some fiscal responsibility, and they stop doing this and running deficits as far as the eye could see, and also global demand could, I don't know, could it collapse? I mean, they've not been able to duplicate the properties in gold and silver in a lab like they have with diamonds. So what's the downside? What's the downside? I don't know. I mean, honest to God, I don't know. My Uncle Al had at least 3,000 ounces in this form, pre-1933. And let's see, what's the face on the, oh, $20. Your choice. You can have this with a $20, which now is at $32.50 and still severely undervalued, should be $41,000, or you can have this, which buys you, oh, okay, well, the official value on $1 is $3 or 3 cents. So how many pennies here, right? What's the downside? The downside is that they confiscate it, that you go into bullion because you don't understand how this whole piece works, and that's okay. You got to do what you're comfortable doing. If you do that, though, I would totally diversify it and balance it out with this. So what if I'm right and what if I'm wrong? But what's the downside? Are you paying right now $41,000 for an ounce of gold? $32.50, if I'm right. And I don't know, do you know anybody else that studied currency life cycles since 1987? Steve Henke. He would be a great one for you to read and listen to. That is his thing. Hyperinflation is his thing. But what's the downside? I don't know. Downside is I own gold and silver, and you see, how old is this piece? This piece is probably 1850, from the 1850s, right? This is probably from the 20s, and guess what? They still have value. They still have value. I don't know what the downside is if you have physical. I don't see it. Things ebb and flow, that's fine, but it's never, ever, 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 did I say ever? Gone to zero. How about this stuff? 4,800 currencies have gone to zero. What's the downside? You tell me. I own gold and silver and food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. Booty hooty, Rudy Manuti. I sleep well at night. But I appreciate the question, because these hard questions have to be asked. And so, Josh, if there are any other, hard questions or snarky questions, I'm not saying this was a snarky question, but if there are anything like that, put them up there. I want to answer them all, unless they're bigoted or something like that. Those I don't want up there. But any other question, no limits on what you put up there. And if I butcher anybody's name, please forgive me. Akash Yaknik asks, hey, Lynette, what do you think about taking out a mortgage for a first-time homeowner? Would it be more ideal to purchase a home in all equity using sound money? Well, at some point it will be, okay? But a big part of the strategy, and I've done pieces which you can find on our YouTube channel on what happens to real estate through these transitions, which are first-time home buyer, right? and you need to have a place to make your last stand because rents are going to go through the roof until they put caps on it, etc. So right now, yes, real estate is severely overvalued. It is. But if you take out a 30-year mortgage, we can calculate how much gold you need to pay that mortgage off when they do that overnight revaluation. Okay? Now, when they do that overnight revaluations, typically you'll see the prices of everything go down. Globally, on average, spot gold will stay up there about 9 months. Maybe that'll happen 9 months this time. Maybe it'll be less. Maybe it'll be longer. I can't tell you that at this point, nor am I going to test it, right? But what I intend to do, and this is frankly the only reason why I have a mortgage on this house, because I want to execute the strategy with you guys. When they do that overnight revaluation, what might take me 10 ounces, right? I'm going to use a lower form of this, but what might take me 10 ounces, by the time that happens, because of the revaluation, it might only take me this, right? It might take me a whole lot less gold to pay off that mortgage. Boom, just like that. So if you have enough money to pay for the mortgage, don't do it. If you can get a 30-year mortgage, get a 30-year mortgage, take the rest of that funding, and we can calculate out how much gold and how much silver you need and position in. And when we get that the first time, I'm not going to wait. I'm not going to, I don't care. It doesn't matter. I'm going to repay that debt, same as governments do, with dollars that have absolutely zero value. Okay? Now, for speculation, I wouldn't touch real estate with a 10-foot pole, but you got to have a place to live. Shelter is part of it, and you got to have that last stand. So eventually, though, and not a very far eventually, but as we work through this trend cycle, just staying on real estate for a minute, what we're going to be looking for, how I always show you patterns. And remember, you guys, I talk about that cup formation all the time, and I show it to you. And that is an accumulation pattern that tells us that the smart money has recognized an undervalued circumstance and has quietly begun to accumulate. Now, I'm not telling you I'm ever going to get you out at the very bottom or out at the top and in at the very bottom, and it doesn't even really matter to me. Honestly, it doesn't. But when we see that cub formation forming, that is when we're going to take some of our gold holdings, right? And we're going to start to convert them into those income-producing assets when they, like gold is now, is severely undervalued. But we're going to have the ability to see, what stocks are going to survive. A lot of them are going to go away, but not all of them, right? We're going to see what's happening in the commercial real estate or in the real estate sector, in the rights sector, meaning air rights, water rights, wind rights, things like that. We're going to have the ability, because everybody else, first of all, they're not holding their purchasing power. That's why we're going to buy this stuff so cheap. But depending upon your personal goals, right, we're going to start converting our gold holdings into those other income producing assets. Just hang with me, and I'll show you when I'm doing it for myself. So I hope that helped. And Kevin D asked, hey, Lynette, going to XRP in Las Vegas in 2025. Yes, I am, and I'm so excited to be there. It was an incredible experience last year. This year, I think I'm probably going to have some stuff that will blow your mind. So, Kevin, are you going? And if you are, let me know that you're part of the group in these live events, because I'd love to meet you. And actually, yeah, if you do, I'm going to be bringing something very special. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet, but it's very special, and you'll like it. You'll like it a lot. And amused reindeer, I have a reindeer around here somewhere, but Why wouldn't a 1-to-1 ratio not be logical with current price manipulation and silver is the only finite metal? Well, silver isn't the only finite metal. The difference between gold and silver is that silver gets used up in manufacturing. So it kind of straddles the global manufacturing world. And so it should be substantially higher than this. A 1-to-1 ratio, probably not. And the reason is that silver does not contain all of the qualities that are required for a key monetary metal simply because it gets used up in manufacturing. So, I mean, anything is possible. Historically, for thousands of years, that's never happened before, and I don't really anticipate it happening again, but that's because of how much it's used in manufacturing. So why gold too is also used in manufacturing, it does not get used up. So if it's put in, let's say, a coffee filter, they're going to extract that gold from it and it remains in the system. And that's why it can be used as a tool of measure, because it's always there. That's different than silver. And Eclair Trio asks, please, is intrinsic value the same as fundamental value? No. Intrinsic value kind of spans the uses, right? So I say that this has intrinsic value because it's used in aerospace, and it's used in solar, and it's used in jewelry, and it's used in the financial markets, and it's used in art, and it's used in lots of things, every single sector of the global economy. So that's what gives its intrinsic value, is that broad functionality, right? This is the only financial asset that has this broadest base of buyers because it is used in every single sector of the global economy. The fundamental value is based on the way money is created in this system versus this, right? So the more of this that gets created, the less purchasing power value it has. But the opposite is true for this. The more of these that are created, in terms of these, the higher the value is. So was that clear? If it's not, let me know. I'll try again. I really do want you guys to know that it's not your job to understand all of this out of the chute. It is my job to translate this financial noise and explain it to you in a way that you can understand it. So if you would help me do my job, I would really appreciate it. Because if you don't understand it, there's at least 100 or 200 or maybe 500 people that are watching this that don't understand it either. So thank you very much for that question, and let me know if that clarified it for you. And if it didn't, then I'm going to try again. And maybe we should just do a video on that. That would be a really easy video to do between the two, and maybe with your graphic wizardry, we could show them the difference. So let's mark that down somewhere. So we'll do a video on that, and hopefully we'll be able to clarify that even more. But you took your questions away. Okay, I'll put it back up. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Yes, so right here. Akash Yagnik asks, when the currency resets, what is going to most likely happen to current dollars? No, not 10 to 1. On average, it's 1,000 to 1. But there was some place that I was reading that just recently did that revaluation, and it was like 100,000 to 1. So I don't know what that reset number is going to be, and nobody will until they finally do it. But if you're sitting with gold, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. And I know nobody ever wants to lose that money, those dollars, but I'd give up $1 because you've got to have it. The sound money strategy is built in layers. This is your first line of defense simply because it's most recognizable. And it's going to go to zero, but I don't care because there's only a certain amount of this that you need as we go into this transition. Once that's used up, then you start using your sound money, right? Dimes, which is roughly, these are 90% silver because they're pre-64, pre-1964. And oh, by the way, for those that were unfamiliar with it, you know, gold and silver were our money at one point. And prior to 1964, silver was the money, right? So this is a dime, which is roughly a tenth of an ounce. It's not. It's like 3/4 of an ounce-ish, but it just makes it easier to remember. Tenth of an ounce, quarter of an ounce, half an ounce, ounce, right? So going into this, what you want is you want fractional pieces. Fractional are less than an ounce. And that's really what you want going into it for your next line of defense for like silver for everyday stuff, buying strawberries or putting gas in your car, things like that. But you need to make sure that you can always pay your property taxes going back to real estate, because real estate really, if it's just you in one property, because if this is your business and how you're generating income, then there's more to the strategy in real estate than what I'm about to tell you. But the two key things in real estate for most people is that mortgage and property taxes. And you can't put your house on your back and go away with it. It's classified as immovable property. And I can tell you for an absolute fact that during the Great Depression, if you had your house paid for, but you couldn't pay your property taxes, you lost your house. So in the sound money strategy, we make sure that, boom, you can pay off your mortgage like that. And no matter what they do with property taxes, you will keep pace with them, so you will always have the ability to pay your property taxes. And you'll notice this is a fractional piece. So we can calculate out what you're paying today and what it's most likely to do and how much gold you need to do that. So there's fractional silver, there's fractional gold, depending upon what you personally are trying to accomplish and where you are. And let's see, Grandma's Gardening, love it. Why does the Fed, not a federal agency, get to decide when and how to juice up the U.S. economy? Good question. We don't need the Federal Reserve, but they are a really good place to point the blame, aren't they? And to your point, Grandma, they are not a federal agency and they do not hold reserves. But, you know, it used to be prior to, I think, 1927, all central banks had a standard charter between 15, and that's their life cycle, between 15 and 20 years. When they instituted the Federal Reserve, they gave them a life cycle of 20 years. That's it. Well, that was 1913. That puts it to 1933, which I think is kind of an interesting coincidence. But the reason why they did that and gave them that life cycle is because they knew that the governments knew that they would be using the central bank, especially when you go into wars, to hyperinflate away the currency. And so this way, governments could save face and go, well, look at the central bank did that. You know, we're fighting it, so they're gone, and then we'll bring in another central bank or what have you. So I think mostly it is a scapegoat, and it was designed to keep you confident in the currency system. But I personally think that they are, look, they've made this experiment last for, well, came out in 1913, and here we are in 2025, and we're at the tail end of it. Longer than anybody would think possible, because they have the ability to regulate the rate and speed of inflation via interest rates. But when they were forced to spike interest rates up, major pattern shift that meant that the game was over. And so even though it takes a while before this understanding goes out to the public, that's what I'm trying to do when I'm showing you all of these pattern shifts, because they're smarter than I am, right? I just believe them because I've been doing this so long, and I know that they're smarter than me. When they tell me something, even if it's not something that I want to believe, I believe them. I believe them. And I try and teach you, because how many times can you be lied to when you do not know the truth? With these pattern shifts, you'll know the truth. You'll know it earlier than anybody else. And so, then people go, oh, look at how long you've been talking about this. These things don't happen overnight until they happen overnight. When do you want to be in position? After you have no choices? Before. And that's what the pattern shifts show us.
So since you, sorry to interrupt, since you mentioned that the United States basically and countries get into war to kind of get themselves or cover up the collapse.
Yes, that's something that happens 100% of the time.
I want to jump ahead here. Rafael Guardado asked you about war in the current situation. So why don't you hit that one for us?
And I will. And also I would like to say that because you are new to this industry, if I say something you don't understand, please let me know, right? Or if a question comes up for you when I'm giving an explanation, please feel free to bring that up, because you're going to have the most clean eyes right now.
For sure.
I think they're already not as clean as they were when you very first got here.
My eyes, they're either not as clean or my eyes have been opened more.
Well, that's it. That's it. Your eyes have been open more. Okay, so Rafael Guardado, and if I butchered your name, forgive me. I am watching you from France, which is one of my personal favorite countries. I have a very strong affinity for France for some reasons that we'll go into at some point. But I am French. I totally agree with you, Lynette. The financial system based on dollars is dead. Will American government go to war? Pretty sure we're already in that. There's all different kinds of war, and all of these different kinds of war are about covering up and justifying the inflation. So when we looked at the war between, say, Russia and Ukraine, is that really between Russia and Ukraine, or was that a proxy war? And have the allies shifted in just the last month or so? Quite honestly, pretty rapidly. Look at what's happening in the Middle East. Is it just between them, or is that, again, a proxy war? What about the tariff wars? Because I think we're already in a tariff war, and the markets are reacting to it, and so is the loss of confidence by the governments, right? That used to buy treasury bonds and buy into the U.S. exceptionalism. That's all going away. That's all changing. So, will American government go to war? Raphael, we're already there. Already there. Unfortunately, the only thing that I'm really waiting for now is for the public to recognize what's happening. But it's already happening. I'm not waiting for things to happen. It's already happening. And Wolf asks, what do you think about buying gold mining stocks now? It's a stock, and it has the debt on it, and it has people on it. And like somebody asked earlier, would they nationalize the mines? Probably. Look at what's happening, particularly in Africa, with an increase in royalties, which is a form of confiscation, right? And how they're requiring more and more from these miners. I do a lot of gold mining conferences, as you guys probably know. And I don't own any gold mining stock. This is not the time. There will be a time once we get a more clear vision of where we are headed, then maybe, but gold mining stocks are not the same as a piece of gold in your possession. And right now, you want to get to safety, and so you want to have physical gold outside of the system in your possession, because if you don't hold it, you don't own it. And your perception means absolutely zero zip zilch in a court of law. So I don't own one stock. I don't own one bond. I only have as much of this because I'm running a business and this is still our tool of barter. But I have my safety gold, right? My savings gold. So if, God forbid, something should happen and I need a bunch of the current currency, I don't care about converting this. That's what it's there for. And I have a bunch of this. I have all of this that's on my desk, right? That you see me work with all the time. Yeah. And Party 8 Dude asks, should I trade my silver for gold? Well, I don't know, right? It depends, because there's a certain amount of silver that you need. And again, all of our strategy specialists has the list. So if you call it and you talk to them and you say, well, this is how I live my life. This is my current standard of living. They can go to the list and they can say, oh, for that you need barterable silver. For the other thing, you need barterable gold. For that, you need, collectible gold, whatever it is. And then that can determine it. Now, a lot of people, because they get married to that ratio, will have, tons and tons of silver. You can do anything with any of this stuff, really. I mean, unless it gets confiscated, you can do anything with any of this stuff. It's just, what is the most efficient tool? I can guarantee you, I have absolutely hung a picture using a back of my shoe to hammer in the nail in the wall. But I can also tell you that whole job goes a whole lot better, faster, neater when I have a hammer instead of the back of my shoe. So what it really is, it's the right tool for the job. You define what the job is, and then you build the portfolio from that to support your goals. If you have tons and tons of silver and you have no gold, it could make sense to convert some of your silver into the gold. But before I would just give you that blanket answer, I'd need to know what your current standard of living is and how you're spending your money. And then that would drive me, okay, this is how much silver you need. This is how much gold you need. This is the form that you need it in. The right tool for the job. Give us a call and we'll walk you through it and we'll show you how to do it, right? Part of it isn't hiding anything. Part of it is the education so that you can make choices that put your best interest first, right? That's the goal. That's our goal, is to be of service and help you do that. So Full of Hope asks, at Lynette Zang, question, with the ill will because of tariffs, who will buy the U.S. debt that needs to be rolled over this year? That is exactly the point, Full of Hope. Will it have to be the Fed? Probably. Won't this make inflation rise faster? Absolutely. Absolutely. What's really happening in here is that the world is the U.S. dollar is losing its status as the world reserve currency. So all of that artificial demand that was created with the petrodollar, where if you were a corporation or a government, and certainly if you've traveled overseas as an individual, you have to convert the currency, right? But as the world reserve currency, countries, corporations had no choice but to use U.S. dollars for buying oil or medicine or lumber or steel or pharmaceuticals or any of that. That's changing. So, it's a big, I wanted to do the one on government debt this week, but to be quite honest with you, you might have noticed that we're changing up things, trying to get a lot better and more clear. 100% I'm going to do that for next week because to your point, yep, I've told you for I don't know how many months now, that indications to me are that we've already begun the hyperinflationary cycle. It's just not visible to the public. I think it will become much more visible this year. I'm not saying we'll be in full-blown hyperinflation, but we could be. I mean, here we are, April 15th, and what do we see? We see the loss of confidence in the dollar on a global scale, and we see the loss of the public confidence here in the U.S. I mean, once the public loses confidence in the dollar, we got Zimbabwe. And Rosie asks, people can grow a whole lot on even half an acre. That is so true. People coming together is the answer. Thank you for all your hard work to help your fellow man. Thank you, Rosie, for being here, because it's true. And you gave me chills. I've got chills right now. All I have is a little half acre, and I am in the middle of a city. I planted out my whole property and become an urban farmer. And I want to feed as many people as I can. And in the bug out location, what I've got up there right now in terms of food, because we had to make some changes, are the orchards that I put in a couple of years ago, and hopefully we'll get some good produce out. My goal with all of that is to feed as many people as I can, because you're right. It's amazing what you can grow. And people, when they come through here, because remember, I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, right? This is a desert. And yet I've got peaches, and I've got plums, and I've got almonds, and I've got pistachios, and I've got pecans, and I've got zucchini. And I mean, people are always amazed. And oh my goodness, I forgot. I just got to have some of my mulberries today. Mulberries are about the best thing you ever put in your mouth. I mean, they are so yummy. So it's mulberry season. I love eating off my property. Yes, Rosie, you can feed an awful lot of people. You know, you've got a few chickens in the back. I share eggs all the time. Yep, I've got a tilapia pond and crawfish pond. I mean, you know, I've got food enough for us to eat and to share, and it's a beautiful thing. Yep, community. It's key. And Chained Goats says, I really learn a lot from your work. Thank you very much. You don't know how much that means to me, and I am grateful. I am a farmer located in Kenya and wanted to know what you think about farms and if they can be a good store of value if we shift to a new system. 100%, because people always have to eat. They can live, like I said, you can live without gold and silver. I mean, that is the foundation, but you can live without them. You can't live without food and water. And thank you very much. I mean, I'd love to come to Africa, because frankly, I'd like to go visit Zimbabwe and have that experience. I've been wanting to do that since I've been tracking it in 2006. Maybe one of these days I will make it there, and maybe I'll get to meet you. But yes, I do think that it is a great store of value and very, very necessary. And let me ask you a question. If anybody volunteers to help you on your farm, wouldn't you accept their help? Right? Somebody volunteers to work on my farm. They go home with produce. But more important than that, we now have a relationship. When push comes to shove, if you have that relationship, who's going to get the necessary food? Yes, I do. And no matter what happens, you got to have food. So a shift into a new system, absolutely. You just need to make sure that you can pay whatever you need to maintain your property. And Gloria Kuri asks, hello, Lynette. I love the live streams. Me too. I put my alarm on. Oh, thank you. I put my alarm on so I can now always attend. Invaluable information, and the Q&A is awesome. Thank you very much, and I appreciate you being here. It is my goal to really build these up, and, you know, at least at this point, I'll keep going as long as there are questions. I'll keep going. I do have a stopping point, but I give you hours because this is so important. And maybe you'll come to one of the live events that we're going to do at the new office building in the phenomenal amphitheater soon. I can't wait. And A#1 Savage asks, Lynette, is a bifurcation of gold and silver a possibility? Silver's monetary place would be shifted into the commodity space, relegated into a copper commodity space. It is possible, but we have thousands of years. I mean, that's kind of like the difference when people are looking at the gold and silver ratio. And silver is a commodity, and both of these are commodities, right? They're real, they're tangible, they're used everywhere. But I'm not sure that it would be relegated to the copper space because it does straddle both worlds. Time is going to tell. Maybe so, maybe not. History would say no, but we'll see. And especially how much it's used in electronics. And Rosie asks, will the gold be taken at the bank to pay off the mortgage? Actually, it might be, but the way that it's really going to work is when they do that overnight revaluation, you're going to convert however much gold that you need to into dollars or whatever that system is, even if we're in CBDCs or what's the stable coins or however they're going to shift us. That's the piece that you need to understand, and why gold and silver is the bridge to get you from one currency system into the next one is because 100% of the time for thousands of years, you could always convert gold and silver into any currency. It's universal money. It is above, that's why I say sound money is above all governments, above all central bankers because of its full utility and the fact that gold held, if you hold it, okay, if you don't hold it, then this isn't true. But if you hold it, it runs no counterparty risk. It is the only financial asset, according to the Bank for International Settlements, that runs no counterparty risk. So you're not going to, they could be collecting gold then, especially if the confiscation has occurred, then the bank's job will be to scoop up any gold that's left in the system. But more than likely, what we're going to do is we're going to convert it into whatever that currency is, and then boom, you're going to pay it off. So it'll be kind of like convert and pay off, right? They do the overnight revaluation, you liquidate however much you need to pay that, and you've got the money in the account, boom, you pay it off. In the U.S., that's why the 30-year mortgage is such an advantage for us. It's more challenging in the rest of the world where you might only have a 5-year mortgage or a 3-year mortgage or up to a 10-year mortgage, right? And I've had a lot of people in other countries say, well, how will this work in my country? And, at first I was trying to figure out how to do this on a short-term basis with the mortgages resetting that regularly. And so therefore, based on the interest rates going up, the payments going up, making it harder. But I realized that what the strategy is really designed to do is to protect you during a reset, a full reset, not just a partial reset. So it still works the same no matter where you are in the world, but you'd have to tweak it just a little bit for as you're going, when you're doing the shorter rollovers of your mortgage. Did that make sense? I'll work on making that more clear because I think it's important. But in the U.S., that is a huge advantage to have a 30-year mortgage. Bam, you pay it off like that. And Silver Spurs 420 asks, I don't mean to sound like a jerk. You're okay, Silver Spurs, I promise. It seems to me this all hangs on the revaluation in my opinion, I don't think our government will do it within the next 100 years because of the spike in gold. That wouldn't be historically normal, because what happens, and I never hear anybody say this, but what happens when we get to zero in terms of purchasing power? What happens? I mean, look at the purchasing power chart from the Federal Reserve. Officially, we are this close to that. Well, what they have to do once they've gotten all the purchasing power is they have to attack your principal. That's all that's left. So, and every single central bank, including the U.S. government, has a gold revaluation account, because money is created from debt in the system. The level of debt is no longer payable, and we cannot attract enough buyers of our debt, right? Now, it used to be that when a central bank bought back a government debt, that was monetizing the debt, because they couldn't go out into the open market and sell all of that debt, right? So they had to buy it back themselves. Well, the U.S. government, if you go into the Federal Reserve Education Department, and you put the holdings of 10-year treasuries in the search line, you're going to see that the Federal Reserve actually started buying U.S. government debt in 2000. Wait, 2000? Very quietly, because that's what a third world country did, not what an advanced economy did. So they had to do it already in 2000, but they didn't want you to know about it. Once the system died in 2008, and that's why, I mean, you're going to be right or you're going to be wrong. I'm going to be right or I'm going to be wrong. I mean, but there was absolutely zero doubt in my mind that the system died in 2008. That's when I became a farmer, right? Because I knew the single biggest issue for people is food. And it bothers me when people are hungry. I don't think anybody should ever have to go to bed hungry. Not a children, not an adult. That bothers me more than I can tell you. So the system has already died. It has already died. And what they've been doing since 2008 is creating the infrastructure and building a new system to transition us into. And the tool that they used to buy them time was this, right? Buy them time. And what that did was force even further devaluation. So the data is right there, and you can see it. This isn't just an opinion of mine. This is based upon, well, what is a currency life cycle, right? First of all, I'll tell you, everything has a life cycle. I'm 70 years old. I have a granddaughter that just turned 10 in March. I can guarantee you we are at a different point in our life cycles. And you're not going to look at her at 10 and go, gee, I wonder if she's going to be 71 next year. And you're not going to look at me and go, wow, I wonder if she's going to be 11 next year. No, you're not, because you have learned to recognize the different life cycles of a human being. Currencies do the same thing. Everything does the same thing. Everything has a life cycle. So when I'm showing you these patterns, what I'm trying to do in here is show you how this currency system is aging. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? We just haven't been taught this, but I'm so grateful that I was in the different places that I've been so that I could see it and recognize it. That's why I came into the industry in 2002, because my early formula said, this is the end. Okay, if this is the end, then I knew that I had to be working with sound money, right? And when 2008 hit, I'm sorry, guys, but I just don't think that it's a coincidence that Bitcoin, which looks like gold, it's not, because there's nothing to it, but Bitcoin was born in January of 2009, and quantitative easing, all this free money printing, was born in March. I don't think that was a coincidence. I think this is a Trojan horse to get us set up into the next system. And if we don't do anything about this, if we don't come together on a global basis and create this quiet revolution by converting out of our government money into sound money, then what we're going to end up having is we're going to be in a feudal system again, where you just have a handful of people that owns everything and everybody else that has to rent. And I don't know about you, but I never learned in the feudal system that the people that were working the land and having to give all the food that they created, or most of the food that they created, to whoever owned the land. I don't recall that being a good thing for anybody, except for those that were charging all those taxes. So, and you don't sound like a jerk, but I would suggest you go, what if I'm right and what if I'm wrong? So let's say that you're right for a minute and that it doesn't happen for the next 100 years. But in the meantime, you've accumulated sound money. Again, I would say, booty hooty, Rudy Manuti. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's a key leg to that dynastic wealth stool. My personal goal is to make sure that I leave a legacy for my children, because I was lucky. I was born in 1954, so I really grew up in the 60s and the 70s after World War II and all that transition where, we were just getting into the inflation system, et cetera, et cetera. I had lots of opportunities and options that were open to me. Well, I don't think my grandchildren have that anymore. In fact, I know that my granddaughter has fewer rights than I had. That's disgusting to me. So for me, one of my key goals is to leave a legacy for my children so that they can dream and have the ability to make those dreams come true. And that legacy is based upon that dynastic wealth stool. Because if we don't do that, if we don't get sound money back in the system again, you tell me what choice and what chance our kids have. Nothing. If it is purely a tool of surveillance and you don't have sound money outside of the system, what chance do we all have? Do any of us have? We have no chance at all. Miramar asks, Lynette, do I have any thoughts on Kinesis Money Services, one of founder directors whistleblower in U.S. about gold and silver price manipulations? Actually, I'm going to be speaking to Kinesis Money Services tomorrow. So I am digging into that a little bit more. And if you can save that question for a minute or two, I will go back in and give you more of an opinion. What I do like about Kinesis is that you can actually pull the gold out of it. There are some other challenges that there might be in setup, because I know we went to set that up, but let's just hold that, put that aside, and I'm going to come back to that at a later date when I have a stronger opinion. Okay. And Cat in a Hat asked, I like that, Cat in a Hat. You sold me on pre-33 gold. Does it matter if it's graded pre-33 or ungraded in a confiscation? There's some discussion on that, but I personally don't think that there is a difference during a confiscation. Those two things are for different functions, though, right? Because this is 1903. This is my savings gold. So if I needed to make a payroll or something like that, an emergency came up, like I just had to write a big check to the IRS, today. But if something came up, I got a bunch of this that I can liquidate in a heartbeat, and I wouldn't even care about it. But I personally do believe that this would be exempt in a confiscation because I can't hold it in an IRA, can I? So it's not classified as monetary gold. This for sure is not classified as a monetary gold either. But the function of this, the graded, is for there's different, mint state, or there's different quality levels. And when I'm talking about quality, this coin, this pre-33 coin, has exactly the same gold content weight as this new coin. So it's not about the gold content. Quality is the level of blemish, right? So what you'll see on these graded coins is, like, this one happens to be MS63. MS means mint state. Remember, this was used. This was money. So people would stick it in their pockets and use it in the normal marketplace. So this was not mint state. This is probably very fine or extra fine or something like that. This mint state, never been in circulation. Today they'll use mint state, but those coins were not minted to be in circulation. So it's just kind of garbage to get you to pay a little bit more. But the early stuff was intended to be in circulation. This coin never made it into circulation. That's unusual, right? 63 tells you the level of blemish, because back then they weren't thinking about this market. So they could have thrown them in a pouch. They would have stacked them. They weren't particularly careful with them. And mint state, the number runs between 60, meaning the most blemishes that there are, to 70, absolutely pristine, not one blemish at all. So 63 is more toward the middle to the lower end, but what also goes into there is how many are known to exist that have been graded at this level, and how many are known to exist that are at a higher level. So when we're making choices, right, first of all, you're going to say, what are your goals? All right? Because even though this will hold my purchasing power and even expand it, for legacy, give me something that is way more rare. Maybe there's only 20 of them in the whole world that are known to exist, and only 3 higher, or what have you. So the way that we operate is we have our list of coins. We have, the populations, the mint states, we have all of that. What we're looking for is, if we know we want this certain level, we're going to look for the coin that has the lowest population and the lowest price in that classification. In other words, we're looking for the cheapest house in the best neighborhood, right? Does that make sense? So you call us, we sit down, we figure out, okay, what are your goals? What are we trying to accomplish here? Okay, this is what you need for this part of your strategy, this part of your strategy, this part of your strategy, and this part of your strategy. In each one of those areas, what's the cheapest house in that neighborhood?
I got a question for you, Lynette.
Sure.
How would the government know who has the gold?
They don't.
So hypothetically, how could a confiscation work if they don't know?
Oh, that's a good question. What they would do is they would make it illegal to use out in the normal marketplace. So, and they would also inspire you because they want easy cooperation. So let's just say that at the time that they do that confiscation, spot is at $4,000 an ounce, right? What they would say is, okay, we're going to do a big sweep of the IRAs because that's where most of the private gold in this country is held anyway, right? But since they don't want you to complain, they want you to cooperate, we're going to pay you $5,000. Well, most people believing Wall Street, I don't know why they do that, to be honest with you, but they do. and they say, well, wow, look at this. Gold is only worth $4,000, but they're willing to pay me $5,000. They would not get a whole lot of pushback, right? They'd get easy cooperation. And that's the way they would do it. They would try and entice you into doing it, right? So, and if you didn't, then you could only use it in the black market. You couldn't use it in the normal marketplace. So that's how they would do it. They would inspire you and get you to think, wow, aren't they being great to me? But they're not. They know that it's worth $41,000. Why wouldn't they pay you $5,000? And I mean, truthfully, if you guys really got that, you wouldn't care about the spot price. It's so far below fundamental value and where it's going to be. I mean, I don't know. In Venezuela, when they did the first overnight revaluation, you saw spot gold in terms of the Bolivar overnight 3,500%. 3,500%. So can you see how it'd be easy to pay off a mortgage, right? And what might take 10 or 20 ounces of gold now might take a quarter of an ounce, right? You just want the kind, no matter what choices you're making, no matter what you believe in, ask yourself this question: what if I'm right and what if I'm wrong? If you only make your choices based on being right, what you have is hopium. Hopium is not a plan. If you make choices where it doesn't matter whether you're right or whether you're wrong, then it doesn't matter whether you're right or wrong. That's where I like to be, because then it doesn't matter. I'm good no matter what happens. And Pandemonium asks, at Lynette Zang, any thoughts about Germany wanting their gold back from the U.S.? Only 3,000 tons allowed. It took 3 years last time they wanted some of it back. I have many thoughts, and not just about Germany asking for their gold back, but all of those countries that are holding their gold at the Bank of England that have shipped their gold over to the U.S., and then that gold has been shipped out and delivered to the fat finger that demanded physical delivery. So I think, what do you think is going to happen if indeed it's not just one country, but it's a number of countries that are repatriating their gold holdings? And to your point, it took 3 years. They're not going to get it back. It's also going to mean that there is more than likely, because obviously I can't guarantee this. This is way above my pay grade. But if there is a rush by central bankers repatriating their gold, and then that means the Bank of England has to go out in the open marketplace to buy the gold and then make sure that it's in good delivery form, what do you think that's going to do to the current price of it? Toward that 41 grand. And remember, that is not a fixed number. The more debt that has grown, the higher that number goes. Does it mean that gold is worth that much more money, or does it mean that the currency is worth that much less? It is not worth anything. It only has value because you have agreed to work for it, try and save it. It's a tool of barter. But when that confidence is gone, it has zero value. And that's what I've been trying to show you, because that's been whittling away. And now it has triggered a technical piece. I think is that one going to go out on Thursday, do you think?
Which one?
The one on the sentiment, where it broke that. And also for you guys, when I was doing that, understanding how critically important it is for you to know these patterns, I will be giving that chart with all the explanations and everything to the strategy specialists, so that you'll watch it on Thursday, and that's great. But it's kind of complicated. So if you want, you can take your time, call us. talk to your strategy specialist, and they will have the ability to walk you through that chart and help you understand that pattern and what it means. And I'm going to start doing that more and more because these, I mean, it's complicated. And as I'm going through these, there might not be the opportunity for you to understand what I'm saying at a deep enough level, but it's so important that you do. So utilize us. Utilize us. That's what we're here for. We're here to be of service. And, okay, Miramar asks, also, jewelry has a much higher premium than coins, but it is easier to transport when wearing it. Yes, it is, but I travel all around the world, and I take this, and I'll take a piece of bullion as well, and I'll take some silver bullion, and I have my travel jewelry. So, yeah, a diversified portfolio just makes a whole lot of sense. And when you understand the fundamental value of an asset, that premium doesn't really matter, does it? And LJ Ponte asks, Lynette, that's great. Oh, thank you. That's a great color for you. My question has to do with the strategy. You recommend a percentage of cash. When to start dipping into those funds? Now? Later? Later, but probably not too much later. One of the reasons why I love doing these live shows every week is because I'm telling you what's happening right now. It's my opportunity. The other stuff we're recording, and so it's not as right this second. So that's why I like doing the lives. I will let you know, LJ, I promise. Okay? But yeah, it's not time to dip into those funds yet. There's a certain amount, and again, it depends. It depends on if you're still working and what your income is, or if you're retired and you're counting on income from investments or what have you. That would frankly determine when you start dipping into those funds, but keep coming back here because I'll let you know when I see that. But you'll know. I've got news for you. You're not going to have to ask me. At that point, you won't have to ask me. And Jules F. asks, I'm sorry, but why would anyone, let alone the federal bank, buy debt? Could you please explain why they buy debt? What is in it for them to buy a loss? Ain't that a great question, Jules? That's right. The reason why people would buy debt is because they don't understand that that's what they're doing, right? Did you know? And you know, the way that they do this is really so flipping brilliant. Let me show you. It's so simple, really. Okay? In the beginning, you had this, a $20 1 ounce gold coin, and it had $20 worth of purchasing power. Then, because, oh my goodness, this is so inconvenient to hold, right? Then they came out with this. I mean, hey, this is an ounce. It's heavy. This has no weight at all, right? But it's a gold certificate. So what does it say on here? This certifies that there have been deposited in the Treasury of $20 in gold coin payable to the bearer on demand, right? So, hey, okay, let's go. Everything is always sold as convenience. This is easier to carry in my wallet than this is. They both have the same level of purchasing power. And then they came out with this. This is a Federal Reserve note. Can you see how much alike? This is actually a newer one, isn't it? It is. Wait, let me find the other one. Okay. This is 1969, right? So this is pre-71. This is a Federal Reserve note. No longer is there any gold deposited in here, but they had this in the system at the same time of this as the same time as the gold coin. You could use any one of them that had the same level of purchasing power. When they did the gold confiscation in 33, right? So they came out with this in 1913. So people had 20 years to get used to using any one of these. When they did the confiscation, these two things went away, but this remained. So people didn't think that anything had changed, when in reality, we gave up our control. Because if we didn't like what the government was doing, we could walk in with this and walk out with this, and that created restrictions around how much debt and money the government could grow. So that's how they do it. They create it so that all these things have the same level of purchasing power, and you get used to it. That's what they're doing with the cryptocurrencies. They have integrated it into the system. People are getting used to it. They're getting comfortable with it. And then, boom, they take away all of your choices, and you are, pardon me, screwed. I don't know how else to say that, but that's just a simple fact. Don't be fooled by it. That's what my work is about. How many times can you be lied to when you do not know the truth? If you are holding this and whatever they put in place, if we cannot get gold back into the monetary system, though I will fight for that for the rest of my life if that's what I need to do. But I think we got a shot. I really do think we've got a shot. If we can get 3% of the population to buy gold and silver, I think we can get a seat at the table. And what that means is I think we can influence the next iteration of money to have sound money in it and to have it convertible. Because as we saw with Zimbabwe, if it's pegged, it means crap. It doesn't mean anything. And once the public loses confidence, they can say anything they want. It's not dying because of whatever, because of them not managing it properly. It's dying because there is no confidence. That's what it is. So the recalcitrant one at Lynette Zang. Hi, how much gold, silver do I need to earmark to pay my property taxes post-reset, and would gold be better suited? Thank you for continuing to enlighten. My pleasure. And if you give us a call, right, you talk to a strategy specialist and you let them know what your current property taxes are, they can calculate that out. And I do agree with you that gold is a better place for that to be because it appreciates faster, like your property taxes will go up. I personally have fractional coins for that. This happens to be a French rooster. But, I also have, this is a $5 gold coin about the same size. So, I like gold for the property taxes, and I like it in fractional form. And it's easy enough to calculate out how much gold do you need to make sure that you can always pay those property taxes, because they're going to be different in Arizona than they are in New York. They're going to be different in New York than they are in Texas, right? So it's based upon your personal property taxes, but that's a very easy calculation, and we're very happy to do that for you. And Stephen Wise asks, why buy gold if it can be confiscated? Buy silver instead? Well, you want gold because it's the primary currency metal and it's what they do those overnight resets against. But that's why I don't own bullion. That's why I do it in the collectible form, because I want the kind of gold that not only can I continue to hold, but I can actually use in the normal marketplace. Silver, and I own both, and I like both, but I lay out, okay, what am I trying to accomplish? What is the function that these coins are supposed to perform? If I want to buy strawberries or gas, this is what I want, and I want it in fractional form. And in fact, if I had to choose one size, which I don't think you should, I think you should have a variety of sizes, but if I had to choose one size, it would be dimes. Why? Because it's easier to put two dimes together than to break a quarter in half. But even in this stuff, because sterling silver or Mexican 925 silver is 92.5% pure. If I needed to buy strawberries with this, do you really think I would have a problem clipping a piece of this? No, I wouldn't. So, any way that you can accumulate, get her done, right? But gold is the primary currency metal. It's what they reset the currency against, and it always outperforms in a hyperinflationary period. Always. And there's over 4,800 examples. 100% of the time, it just performs better. It holds its purchasing power better. It puts you in a better position. So you have to have gold, but not just gold. You want gold and silver. And not just gold and silver, but you want it in different forms based upon what you're trying to accomplish. And we will help you figure that out, because that's our job, to be of service and help you understand it. And you can ask us lots and lots and lots of questions, because we want you to be educated. You know, at the end of the day, all I can give you is my well-educated opinion. But the reality is that you are the one that are going to reap the rewards, or at any rate, suffer the consequences of any of the choices that you make. So I would prefer for you to make educated choices, even if you disagree with me. If you can go into that, what if I'm right and what if I'm wrong mode, and do something that is properly diversified so that it just doesn't matter whether you're right or wrong. That's the safest place to be. And Ren Pixie asks, which is better for limited income, silver or fractional gold? Depends again on what you're trying to accomplish, because you can buy fractional gold, and honestly, everybody's got to own gold, right? I mean, I'll go to estate sales, and I'll also go to like antique shops. And if you find somebody that does a lot of silver or a lot of jewelry, I guarantee you they're going to have some that's scrap, right? Now, where are the dealers going to sell that scrap? They're going to go to a smelter. A smelter is going to give them a certain amount below spot. So one way to accumulate is to say, okay, I will pay you spot by weight. And remember, sterling silver is 92.5% pure. So if spot's at $30 and what they bring out, a broken, whatever, any of this junk, right? They bring this out and they put it on a scale, and it weighs 1 ounce, just as example, you're going to pay 92.5% of spot for that. So it's another way to accumulate this stuff cheap, cheap, cheap. Now, obviously, having the strategy in place and having some foundation in sound money that we can walk you through makes a whole lot of sense. But you see me wear jewelry. Why do you think I do that? Because I want you to understand that gold and silver in any form is money at its base. And so even if you are in a tighter circumstance, you probably have some maybe gold jewelry, right? Or, again, I mean, I bought all this stuff at yard sales because people didn't want to polish it. Do you think I care about that? Do you think it even matters? It doesn't. It can be completely tarnished. Who cares? So whatever your circumstances are, I guess is the point, there's always a way to accumulate. And you have to figure out what that is. And no matter what, we are here to be of service, so we're happy to help you do anything. And by the way, do you know what our minimum is? 1 silver coin, 1 silver ounce. That's our minimum. We don't make any money. It probably costs us money. I don't care. It's because we want to make sure that everybody can execute a strategy. So you want to do a bit of both if you can, but Ren Pixie will help you figure that out. We'll help you figure it out. And Spirit-Filled Mindset said, I like that. She is blinded by confiscation, which will never happen. Well, Spirit, are you in control of that? Because I'm not. And I know that I was born in 1954. It was illegal to hold more than 5 ounces of gold until after 1971, 1976. So I can't guarantee that that's true. But what I do know is my Uncle Al had at least 3,000 ounces in a safe that were legal to use for him to accumulate when it was illegal to hold more than 5 ounces, and he could use it in the normal marketplace because this is how he held it. So again, maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. I'm not blinded by confiscation, but I mean, it's happening right now. I'm not going to tell you that it's impossible. And oh, by the way, a very, very interesting exercise is to go into the Federal Reserve Education Department, the Fred, and in that search bar, go ahead and put purchasing power of the consumer dollar. And below that, you can pick the dates that you want. Put your birthday in. Put your birthday in. Because if you don't think that inflation or price manipulation is a form of confiscation, think again. So maybe you're blinded by the normalcy bias. But what if you're wrong? What if you're wrong? So even if you believe that that won't happen, okay, you get to have that opinion. It's not based on historic or even current facts, but you can have that opinion. It's your right. And so all you buy is bullion. How about diversifying that portfolio so that if this goes away, if they do the confiscation, you are made whole? If you just do this and they confiscate, what do you got? So maybe you're blinded by the normalcy bias, but how about covering your butt?
We've been going for almost 2 hours. Do you want to keep going?
Do you guys want me to keep going? What are they saying?
The questions are slowing down,
But they're slow. Okay, well, I can keep going for a little bit longer. So let's just keep going. I promised everybody that I would stay. And Phil McCracken asks, would you have to fill out a Form 8300 by more than $10,000 in pre-33 gold and or more than $10,000 in constitutional silver? No, you do not. Nope, nope, nope. We do everything to the legal letter of the law. There is no required reportability on any of your purchases or sales of these. Now, all good citizens always pay all taxes that are due, and the strategy will recoup those, right? But, and even in American Eagles, to be honest with you, there's no reportability on the buy or on the sell. Some of the foreign coins and some of the silver, there are limitations. And then above that, there is an obligation for us to report. And if we have to, we will. And we give you as much guidance as we legally can because we comply with all the legal letters of the law. This is part of the reason why I personally like to be in the category of bazillionaires. So I'm talking about collectible gold coins that can go for millions and millions of dollars. Because I figure, and I could be wrong about this, but I kind of think that anybody that can pay $15 million for a coin is either somebody that writes the laws or can influence those that write the laws. So I'm not going to pay $15 million for one of these, and you don't have to pay $15 million for one of these, but I want to be in that same category because I think that is a much safer category to be in. And take a look at what's happening and what's been happening. And this is not something that's new. The transition of wealth, especially with the K-shaped recovery, and, God, once they hand it over, the ability to control inflation to the central banks. Have you not noticed the difference between the haves and the have-nots? This is a big club. We're not in them, but we can be in our own club. Let's do that. And Night Diver asks, Lynette, we are a family of 3 with minimal debt and a mortgage, 34% left owed. We've only stacked fractional gold so far. Should I buy large bars, 1-ounce coins, focus more on silver to pay off your property, You want something probably in this category, right? So you do it better with gold. We can calculate out exactly how much of this that you need. And then when we get that overnight revaluation, you might need a fraction of it, because I can't tell you what that ratio is going to be. I can tell you right now, if they did it today on a 1-to-1 basis, it would be somewhere north or somewhere around $41,000. But they're not doing it today. And I don't know what that ratio is going to be. I know we've got a whole lot more money printing coming up ahead of us. So give us a call. We'll calculate that out, but you're better off doing it with gold than silver. It's just going to require way too much silver, storage and all of that. I like silver. Both of them are severely undervalued. That's why I always go to, what am I trying to accomplish? And it's the right tool for the job. So we'll help you figure that out. And politicians never lie. What don't you like about bullion? What I don't like about bullion is how easily it is manipulated and the ease at which they can and will do the confiscation. Because you've got to think about the eminent domain laws, right? In eminent domain, I mean, frankly, all the laws are in place for the government to take any darn thing they want. They could come onto my property today and confiscate every bit of food that I'm creating here. They can confiscate all of my vehicles. They can take my house. But in theory, they have to pay me fair market value. Well, if they're manipulating the fair market value via the bullion, which is easy enough to do because they create as much gold and silver that does not nor ever will exist, you're not getting fair value from it. And you don't even know what's truly happening in the underlying market because it is not a clean supply and demand market. In bullion, it runs with the spot market, but the spot market isn't based upon supply and demand. It's based on how much gold the market thinks is out there and then the demand. And so it's easy to manipulate. If I saw that it was a true supply-demand market, so we see spot right now at 41,000, I would feel differently. But knowing how easy it is for them to manipulate it and easily seeing, and this was back in 2009, the Bank for International Settlements tracks derivatives on a quarterly basis. Now, prior to 2008, central banks did not play heavily in that market. You know, some foreign exchange trades, etc., but not very heavily. At that point, when I went in to look, and anybody has access to this. I don't have any more access than you do, frankly. It's just that I'll go there and I'll look. But you can go to the BIZ, the Bank for International Settlements, and put in their quarterly derivative reports. And when I did that in 2009, what I discovered, and it was before I knew print screen, unfortunately, but what I discovered was that for every 1 ounce of physical gold that there was in the whole wide world, they had created 62,000 derivative ounces of gold. So the market reads it as if there's 62,000 ounces instead of 1 ounce. Do you think that can have an issue or can it manipulate the prices? Of course it can. So what I don't like about bullion is that I can't really see the true supply-demand dynamics because they cover it up with lots and lots of paper, right? So even now as we're seeing spot expand and go up, the reality is there's still a lot of paper gold out there. Additionally, that's what most people are comfortable with. They're way more comfortable with this than they are with this. And I've got news for you. How many companies out there really understand this in this market? Not many, right? So it's much easier to sell an ounce of bullion than it is to sell a collectible coin because this requires really a strong knowledge base and an understanding of not just the spot market, but a broader market. It's harder to do. you'll find, and you'll be meeting more and more of the strategy specialists, but go back, a couple weeks when Jennifer was here, right? Listen to her. She's smart. Everybody that is a strategy specialist has come from an area of expertise, right? So it's the quality level of the people that we have at Zang Enterprises and their desire to do good and their desire to really help everybody through this. I don't like bullion because I do believe it's going to be confiscated again, because they've been confiscating our wealth since the moment you were born. Are they going to stop at the last second and go, we got enough of your wealth, you can keep that? No. This is wealth transfer. So that's what I don't like about bullion and why I don't own it. This has not always been true. I bought my house with bullion. Okay, so there was a time before we got to this point in the marketplace that I was very comfortable with bullion. And for part of my portfolio, for paying my taxes, for down payment on my house, those kinds of things, and there still is. It's not like you can't do bullion at Zang Enterprises, because we do quite a bit of bullion, but it kind of depends on what you are trying to accomplish, right? So that's the way we look at it. And let's see. Michael Lamb asks, would there ever be a confiscation of silver? Well, there has been. Back in 1933, they did confiscate silver as well. The difference is that it gets used up, and it is really leans a little bit more to the manufacturing side. So I just don't have those same concerns around silver that I do with gold. But even in my personal silver portfolio, I have the pre-64, which would be a collectible, and this happens to be a new one, right? So if I'm wrong and they do choose to confiscate silver, I'm still covered by the collectibles. But I'm not as concerned about that because it gets used up. And it's the secondary monetary metal. And Pandemonium asks, what about the 1989 peak when you look at PCGS 3000 chart? Was it a bubble caused by speculation on rare gold coins? Yes, it was. And it was a participation. I'm so glad you asked that, because it was a participation of Wall Street that created that bubble. Because up until 1986, it was anybody's guess as to what the quality level of this coin was. So you would go to a dealer and he'd look at this and he'd go, well, I think this should be a mint state 66, and charge you based on that. So you really couldn't trust what somebody said that it really was. But in 1986, they standardized everything. PCGS did. This happens to be a PCGS coin. And they created this 100-step process with multiple layers of people that go through it to determine and guarantee that it is what it says that it is. But going back to that question, and I want you to really think about it, because what does Wall Street always do? They look for and or create those opportunities. My personal feeling, because we've begun this time's gold rush, and there ain't no fever like gold fever. Do I think that Wall Street is going to participate again? Yes, I do, especially with what's happening in the rest of those fiat markets. I do think they are going to participate again. And I think that we will go way past that 1989 peak. And if you look at all of it, you can see the cup forming. You can see it. We got a ways to go. And that's when you want to buy it. You want to buy it when it's down near the bottom of that cup. So great question. Thank you so much, Pandemonium, for asking that and bringing it up. Yes, absolutely, 100%. I think Wall Street will help us make way new highs, because there's also a whole lot more money sloshing around in the system today than there was in 1989. And Karakalak asks, is it legal to own Cuban gold coins in the U.S.? Yes, as far as I know, gold is universal money, and it is indeed legal to own Cuban gold coins in the U.S. Is that it? Okay. Well, this was great. We had so much participation, which is exactly what I like, and I will keep answering questions as long as you keep asking me them. And the only limitations is, quite honestly, this is my hardest day of the week, so I have a massage at the end of this day. So the only time that I would have to stop would be when I was getting ready for the massage. But I will keep going. I'm like an Energizer bunny, and I'm here to be of service, absolutely. And I love, love, love the questions. No question is off limits. But look at what we're doing together. We're building this community, and I love that more than you know. And I appreciate all of your support. And I've been having a lot of fun when I'm in the office, and pretty soon I'm going to be in the office. Right now I'm only in there one day a week, so I can only do it on Mondays. But we're coming up within the next, I don't know, maybe a month-ish or so. The first part of our office should be open, and then I'll be there 3 days a week. But if I see a FaceTime call with you and one of our strategy specialists, do not be surprised if I don't pop my head in to say hi. I love doing that because I love being with you guys. And until next we meet, please be safe out there. Bye-bye.